Just so you know, this show is about scary stuff. So don't say I didn't warn you guys. And remember, don't be scared.
Episode 101, Heroes Against the Perfect Storm. War Baby here with another episode of Murderous Minors.
Kendrick Castillo died a legend.
When 18-year-old Kendrick Castillo entered room 107 in Mrs. Harper's British literature class, none of them knew they would all leave that room as heroes. There were just 3 days remaining in the school year, and their teacher thought that a lesson on analyzing comedy would help round out the semester with some laughs. What they got instead was tragedy. On this episode of Murderous Minors, we look at the 2019 STEM School Highlands Ranch school shooting and the legacy of bravery left behind by Kendrick Castillo, who put himself in harm's way to save others. This episode contains descriptions of self-harm, sexual abuse, and gun violence. STEM School Highlands Ranch is a K-12 charter school located in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, a suburb of Denver situated just a handful of miles from Littleton, Colorado, and Columbine High. The shooting, perpetrated by STEM school students 16-year-old Alec McKinney and 18-year-old Devon Erickson, took place just after the community marked 20 years since the day of that attack. Raising children in the physical shadow of Columbine High and all that it represents likely gave parents the chance to talk about what to do in an active shooter situation, though contemporary society itself has likely caused most parents to discuss it with even their littlest of kids. Kendrick's dad had certainly had that conversation with he and his wife's only child. He recalled when later interviewed that his son had told him that he would attempt to stop a school shooter should he ever be put in that position, to which his father had stressed that he didn't need to be a hero. Kendrick assured his father that he would save people because he was raised to be a good person. Neither likely felt as though that day would ever come. The teen had attended Catholic school through the 8th grade, and his interest in engineering and love of robotics landed him at the STEM School Highlands Ranch, a charter school which emphasizes science, technology, engineering, and math as early as kindergarten and through to graduation. The son of an engineer, Kendrick's passion was robotics, along with off-roading and his love of Jeeps. His father told CNN, quote, "He loved patriotism. We're Hispanic by nature, but we love America to the core. This wasn't your average kid. He was extraordinary." Kendrick already had plans in place to attend community college in the fall of 2019 to begin his studies in engineering, and his friend Brendan Biley was already a United States Marine Corps poolee, just waiting to graduate from high school so he could ship off to boot camp and, start being a full-fledged adult. But not all of their peers had productive plans for their future set in motion, specifically 18-year-old Devon Erickson. Though he was also preparing to graduate, he had spent the last 6 months losing sleep and losing weight due to stress at home and a mounting drug problem. Since January of 2019, Erickson had been hanging out with a new friend, a younger kid named Alec McKinney, a sophomore. Though Devon's parents were having issues at the time due to his mother being in substance abuse treatment in Arizona and his father's constant attention to that matter, Alec McKinney's life seemed just as uncomfortable. McKinney, a transgender boy born Maya, had been hospitalized multiple times in 2018, mostly for self-harm. According to his mother's later testimony, she'd often been abused by her husband from the time their 3 kids were little until he was deported to Mexico in 2010 for being a drug mule and dealing in human smuggling. Even after, she said, she allowed him to see their children, taking them across the border to visit him every 2 months. Only just before her testimony did she find out that Alec had been molested by an unnamed individual on one of those trips, though she did recall noticing a change in her child's behavior and signs of depression beginning to manifest around that time. Though records indicated that McKinney was diagnosed with adjustment disorder after the deportation, McKinney's mother testified that she didn't recall that, mostly due to her own escalating drug use and immersion in a new romantic relationship. At 13, McKinney came out to his mother in a note, telling her that he was a lesbian, and soon after, the self-harming and self-medicating began. McKinney's mother said on the stand that she was uneasy and unaccepting when Alex started wearing less feminine clothes and a short hairstyle. She was aware of her child's self-destructive behavior and cutting, but did not take McKinney for treatment for 2 more years, and in 2015, the teen told the therapist about feeling, quote, overburdened. The oldest of 3, Alec had become sort of a substitute parent, staying with the younger kids into the early hours while their mothers stayed out or keeping them occupied while the grown-ups partied in the apartment. By 2017, the couple had split, which also upset the teen and caused the family of 4 to join the at least 10 others living in McKinney's grandparents' home. Though in regular therapy at that time, Alex still spent 2018 in and out of the hospital for self-harming. In December of 2018, the school itself was dealing with some explosive complaints made in an anonymous phone call to a member of the school board, accusing STEM School Highlands Ranch of fostering an environment more akin to a pressure cooker than the innovative learning experience they seek to offer. According to the letter from the school district sent to STEM's executive director, the so-called Jane Doe, who identified herself as a STEM parent, made accusations such as, quote, parents are afraid to speak out about STEM because there's a document online that says students will be expelled if they do. There is an extremely high drug culture at STEM, students dealing and using cocaine, meth, marijuana, and LSD, including putting marijuana in drinks. Several students have gone to rehab. The executive director has ignored many complaints and issues that have been brought forward and told this individual, I know we have bullying and special needs students that cause problems, but those students will just leave. Concerns about student violence due to a high-pressure environment. The individual called it, quote, the perfect storm, groupthink, and students who don't understand things are susceptible to, quote, copycatting. The individual expressed concerns about a repeat of Columbine or Arapahoe. There was a recent bomb threat, and kids learned how to make a bomb in the school. Many students are suicidal and violent at the school. Several students have reported sexual assault in school and that nothing is being done. And there was a student who was cutting so badly that they were, quote, bleeding out and no teachers noticed. The student was discovered at Starbucks by another student and then taken to the hospital. Teachers and staff now go to that student for help with other students. That letter to the executive director of the school was dated December 19, 2018, and in May of 2019, she told Local 9 News in a statement that the school immediately contacted all parents in hopes of further light being shed on these accusations. However, quote, STEM did not receive responses from any parents or students with information about these allegations. This episode is brought to you by Best Fiends, the easy-to-play, easy-to-love Match 3 puzzle game that's free to download and rich in fun. Summer is here, and with the high temps making most things just impossible to bear, it's just that easy to sneak in extra breaks each day to play Best Fiends. It challenges me, but doesn't make me want to throw my phone. It entertains me, but is bright and quirky enough to keep me engaged, and it never leaves me bored. Best Fiends is always there, with literally thousands of puzzles to solve and new things to see and play every day. I've told you for years, but now is a great time to find out for yourself if you haven't already. Download the 5-star rated puzzle game Best Fiends free today on the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R. Best Fiends. In January 2019, just as Alec McKinney and Devon Erickson were starting to bond over their daily drug use, STEM School's executive director filed a civil suit against the Jane Doe, claiming defamation and demanding she reveal herself. The following month, she and the STEM board president issued a letter to parents reading in part, quote, "An anonymous call was made to a Douglas County School District board member in mid-December, accusing our school leadership and board of serious criminal behavior. These outrageous accusations of criminal behavior of our outstanding and dedicated volunteer board threatens their very professions. An investigation by STEM board and staff leadership revealed no evidence of these allegations. While STEM took the allegations seriously, our investigation revealed no evidence to support any of the allegations raised in the anonymous complaint." But a petition was started online calling for the ouster of them both, and the school's application to the Douglas County School Board to renew its charter for 5 years was approved for only 3. With numerous requirements attached. Specifically highlighted was the development of a way for parents to give input. Then, on April 29, 2019, the school's Wikipedia page was edited, and though it wouldn't be noticed immediately, in retrospect it read like a prediction. Following the passage that read, quote, 2018, anti-suicide programs are implemented to help lower the chances of suicide in school shootings. Someone added, quote, "Do they work? We shall see." By then, McKinney and Erickson were already weeks into planning to target specific classmates Devon didn't like, according to McKinney's later testimony. What had started with a conversation about the most messed up thing on their bucket lists soon evolved into staging forced drug use and demolishing a gun safe with an axe.
"What's the most messed up thing on your bucket list?" I remember saying I wanted to try acid, and Devon had said that he wanted to get away with killing someone.
McKinney explained that the pair had taken great interest in the story of Sol Pais, the 18-year-old so-called Columbine threat suspect who traveled from now infamous Surfside, Florida to Denver, Colorado, just days before the community would stand in remembrance of Columbine. The Miami Beach High School senior was last seen by her family on Sunday, April 14th, and was reported missing the following evening. According to the missing persons report, Pais told her parents that she would be staying after school for art history review, but instead, she flew to Colorado, took a ride-share to a gun store in Littleton, and purchased a pump-action shotgun and ammunition, less than 2 miles from Columbine. After their calls had gone unanswered and their daughter had never returned home from school, Pais's parents reported her missing, and someone else she had spoken to called police as well to report, quote, concerning comments she had made, and soon the FBI deemed her a credible threat. They'd also discovered that the teen had bought one-way tickets to Denver leaving on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of that week, and security camera footage from the airports confirmed she had actually traveled there. In response, the students at Columbine High School, plus over 500,000 other Denver area children in their schools, were placed on lockout the next day, Tuesday, April 16, 2019. As law enforcement converged on the area, attempting to track Pais in real time, access to these schools was restricted, and after hours on edge, the students were released to their families. The schools remained closed on Wednesday, April 17th, and by late morning, it was apparent that the search had intensified in Clear Creek County, just west of Denver. Reports had come in at some point in the search of a woman fitting Sol Pais's description running through the woods without clothes on, an hour away near the Echo Lake Lodge in Mount Evans, and a young woman's body was found there just after 10 a.m. on Wednesday. The coroner determined that Pais took her own life on Monday, the day she arrived in Colorado, with the firearm she purchased when she got there. By the time the FBI knew that this girl with a quote infatuation with Columbine was missing, Sol Pais was already deceased near Denver. Several media outlets reported about her online blog where she wrote, quote, "The purpose of this site is for me to give insight into the thoughts I rarely, if ever, share with others while remaining somewhat anonymous. Everything from journal entries to my personal interests. I want to leave a record of myself before well." She posted photos of guns, drawings of the Columbine shooters, and journal entries such as, quote, "I am the face of loneliness and misery," and "In this tiresome reality that I do not belong in, I take the form of Sol." Some classmates at Miami Beach High School recalled after her death that though she was quiet and kept to herself, they never expected this from her. Her father told the local media that his daughter may have had, quote, "mental issues," and her mother stated that she, quote, "had no friends." But as 20 years to the day of Columbine came and went, McKinney and Erickson felt a kinship with Sol Pais. They devoured information about Columbine and the death pilgrimage just completed by Pais, and they planned.
We both related to how those people were feeling. Devon and myself were not in a good place at that time, mentally. He wanted to get everyone into a cabin, say it was a party, and then end up killing those people. One day the plan sort of shifted into the idea of a school shooting when we were in his car one day. And it was kind of more serious, like he was thinking about it. It was narrowed down to Devon disliking the classmates he had in that classroom and saying that that was the most ideal place to do it because that was where most kids he hated would be at the same time.
On May 6, 2019, messages were exchanged between the pair on Snapchat, including one from McKinney telling Erickson not to go to school the next day. McKinney would later testify that these were part of their ultimate plan. The pair met at school at 7 a.m., then went to Erickson's house and did cocaine. McKinney said that Erickson told him he felt like he had, quote, "lost his girlfriend."
This is kind of the pushing point to going through with the plan we had talked about previously.
They returned to school and Erickson stayed a while before returning home with a different friend to smoke marijuana and snort more cocaine. That friend would say later that Erickson seemed the happiest he had been in a while. Erickson also went and picked up a girlfriend from a neighboring high school that morning and spent about 30 minutes with her in a park. She would later testify that he was texting McKinney the whole time. Back at school, McKinney and Erickson left campus and went back to Erickson's house at lunchtime, where they did more cocaine. At this time, McKinney searched the house for a key to the gun safe located in the master bedroom closet, but doesn't find it because it's with the owner's keys. He used an axe and a crowbar Erickson got him from the garage, and the two spent hours getting the safe open. McKinney said later that he staged videos that made it look like he was forcing Erickson to snort lines of cocaine and to help get the guns from the safe to make Erickson appear less culpable later. He said that before they left the home, Erickson wrote, quote, "The voices win" in nail polish on a closet door, spray painted "Fuck Society" on the side of his mother's car, and set it momentarily ablaze, the fire burning hot enough to singe his hair. They returned to the STEM School campus in Erickson's car with a handgun and a rifle in his guitar case and 2 handguns in McKinney's backpack, using the middle school parking lot and entrance into the building because they knew no one would question or search them that way. Camera footage from the school captured them getting buzzed in and walking through a lobby area, then opening a door and entering into the hallway near the doors to room 107, Devon Erickson's British literature class. Inside, according to McKinney's later testimony, a number of the individuals Erickson wanted to target were sitting in class watching The Princess Bride. The camera footage shows the pair enter the hallway, bump fists in a friendly goodbye, and go their separate directions, with the plan being to converge on the classroom through each of the 2 doors.
I think it would have been easier to have executed if we were at separate doors.
Erickson enters first, late, and is immediately sent to see the nurse, as his teacher noticed he looked faint. A student named Mitchell walked with him. The nurse gave Erickson a cold pack for his head and talked to him about stresses at home before having him lay down. He was texting McKinney as he rested, and 14 minutes later told him, quote, "Go now." McKinney had gone into Mrs. Harper's class too, under the guise of getting her aunt out, plus Erickson's friend Aaron. The aunt, who was also a senior, testified later that she did leave the room after McKinney said that Erickson would be getting into a fight, but that she had already started to return when the shooting began. An ex-boyfriend said that McKinney tried to get him to go into room 107 prior to the attack. When Erickson came out of the nurse's office 14 minutes after he left the classroom, McKinney was waiting in the hall and they returned to room 107. Before entering, Erickson adjusted the magnetic strip on his assigned door so that it wouldn't open from the outside once closed. Mrs. Harper testified that when Erickson returned from the nurse, he said he thought he should just go home, so she gave him permission to sign himself out and leave. But as he approached the front of the dimly lit room, he pulled a .45 caliber handgun from the guitar case, brandished it toward his classmates and teacher, and shouted for no one to fucking move. 1 second before the room erupted into chaos. McKinney grabbed the revolver from his backpack and the pair opened fire on their fellow students from different points in the classroom, each attempting to block a door.
Because at that time I was still going along with the plan Devon and myself had made to blame it all on me. I remember people coming at me and I was shooting aimlessly at whatever movement I saw. I remember seeing him shoot as well, panning out around the room, aiming at students.
Once his 9 bullets had been shot, a student tackled him, and a teacher entered room 107 and disarmed McKinney before turning his attention to Erickson, who'd been tackled almost immediately upon pulling his weapon. Those present that day recall Kendrick Castillo lunging directly at Devon Erickson just after he shouted for no one to move. A frantic play for the gun began, and 1 shot was fired, striking Kendrick in the chest. Brendan and Josh had also jumped in to help disarm their classmate, and Josh was shot twice in the leg, as Erickson tried to turn the barrel toward their heads. He continued pulling the trigger even after no bullets remained. Brendan Biley later testified that despite his efforts, he had to struggle with Erickson to let go of the gun, and the shooter maintained a strong grip on it until it was pried from his hand. Only then did he say that McKinney had made him do it. By then, the teacher had disarmed McKinney, who then ran out into the hallway where he was tackled by some students. The teacher who had entered room 107 and disarmed McKinney had quickly turned his attention to the severely wounded Kendrick Castillo, whose attack on the shooter gave his classmates time to try and save themselves. Kendrick lay gravely injured, and despite trying to stop the bleeding with his bare hands, the teacher was soon unable to find a pulse. The Castillos, desperate to find out if their son was safe, instead learned that their only child was the casualty of the latest school shooting in America, and that he died a hero, most certainly saving others' lives. Once McKinney ran out into the hallway and was tackled, he got away and retrieved the other gun from his backpack. He testified that he went back into the hallway and postured as though to shoot himself in the head, but it didn't fire and he didn't know enough about guns to fix it. Just then, the school's private security guard encountered the teen after hearing commotion over his radio but being unable to elicit a response. Though there's no sound, the security camera footage shows the security guard disarming McKinney and ordering him down on the ground. All the while, he testified, the teen was telling him that they had more guns than him, that they were going to kill him, before referencing the voices and saying that the guard needed to kill him. McKinney never answered as to how many shooters there were, and the guard didn't shoot McKinney, but he did fire multiple shots toward what he thought was a second shooter. The muzzle the guard saw peek around the corner belonged to a Douglas County Sheriff's deputy. The officer was not struck, however, 2 students in a classroom on the other side of the wall were injured. STEM School Highlands Ranch didn't have a school resource officer from a local department and instead contracted with an outside business that started in response to the Columbine shootings. The security guard was legally prohibited from carrying a weapon on campus, however, no charges were ultimately filed. In addition to Kendrick and Josh, 4 other students in room 107 were also shot by McKinney, including the classmate who walked Erickson to the nurse. He was shot in the back and made it off school grounds and onto a residential street before even realizing he'd been hit. Another student testified that he looked right into McKinney's eyes as he pointed the gun at him, saying, quote, "I pleaded twice, you don't have to do this," before being shot in the shoulder, leg, and hand that day. By then, law enforcement had converged on the scene and had actually arrived within moments of the first call, and after being fired upon, the deputies gained control of the scene and took both shooters into custody within a short period of time. The original stories told by the shooters once in custody were different to what McKinney would eventually testify to under oath. Following their arrests, the pair made statements to the effect that Erickson was threatened with his life to participate, and he told police that he didn't want to and actually wanted to stop it.
Now that I'm sober and under oath, that is not accurate. I believe we share equal responsibility for everything that happened. No one tried to stop anyone. No one forced anyone into this. We were both mutually agreeing.
When McKinney switched narratives a few months after the shootings, investigators and prosecutors noted this.
The end of the plan was that he was, after everyone besides him and myself was dead in that classroom, he was going to then shoot me to make it look like he attempted to save everyone, and then ultimately he wanted to come off as the hero.
When he testified against Devon Erickson with this version at his murder trial in June of 2021, McKinney denied that these changes were prompted by the desire to get into a program for early release where a requirement is no serious mental health issues. McKinney responded, quote, "If I apply, it's not up to the court but the Department of Corrections. My sentence isn't up to you." After both had been arrested and charged with more than 40 counts, it was determined that McKinney would be tried as an adult in December 2019. However, before he could go to trial, he pled guilty to 17 charges, including first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, multiple attempted murder charges, and more. 18-year-old Alec McKinney received 40 years to life because he was a juvenile, and it was that juvenile status that could one day be the road to a shorter sentence. Following McKinney's sentencing, Kendrick's father had this to say.
Smoke and mirrors, crocodile tears, lack of remorse, all of those things are reality. Don't be fooled, people. Evil walked into that room that day, and Kendrick Castillo stepped up and stopped it. My wife and I will never have closure. We'll never find peace. We have a new normal now, and the normal is activism, and it's for helping other families so that they don't end up where we're at. We wish this on no one.
So, in July of 2020, McKinney pleaded guilty and received 40 years to life in prison. However, his accomplice, Devon Erickson's trial was delayed through 2020, not beginning until late May of 2021. The prosecution contended that Erickson was equally culpable in the planning and carrying out of the shooting, while the defense insisted his life had been threatened by a manipulative puppet master who forced him to take part. The prosecution called more than 60 witnesses, including McKinney, teachers, law enforcement personnel, and entered into evidence over 200 exhibits, while Erickson's defense called only 2 witnesses, a toxicologist and a University of Colorado physiology professor. Erickson did not take the stand. The prosecution pointed out that numerous opportunities had presented themselves to Erickson, which would have allowed him to back out or alert someone to McKinney's plan. However, he never did. They played recorded phone calls from jail where he refers to himself as a school shooter. The toxicologist, who didn't interview Erickson or review any of the evidence or witness statements, contended that the drug use, sleep deprivation, and rapid weight loss made him susceptible to cloudy thinking. The other defense witness testified that it was, quote, highly likely that Kendrick lunging into the gun caused it to discharge accidentally. When McKinney took the stand, though, he was adamant in his assertion that,
I believe we share equal responsibility for everything that happened. No one tried to stop anyone. No one forced anyone into this. We were both mutually agreeing.
And the jury concurred, as after just a few hours of deliberation and less than a day since closing arguments, 20-year-old Devon Erickson was found guilty on 46 counts on June 15, 2021, including 2 counts of first-degree murder, which alone carry maximum sentences of life without parole, and 31 counts of criminal attempt to commit murder in the first degree, among others. He'll be sentenced on September 17, 2021. Kendrick's father had this to say following the verdict.
We'll never quit missing him. We'll never quit honoring him. And this day is justice for him.
Kendrick Castillo's legacy of bravery continues to have a huge impact on those in his family, those in that class, those in the community, and those who've gone on to hear his name and his story. At his memorial service, held just hours after McKinney and Erickson made their first court appearances, more than 2,000 attended, and his procession included hundreds of jeeps and was led by Colorado law enforcement agencies, an honor never before bestowed upon a civilian there. A petition was started to have Kendrick awarded the Arthur Ashe Courage Award, which in 2000 had been posthumously awarded to Coach Dave Sanders, the selfless Columbine High School teacher who saved hundreds before dying in the 1999 massacre. And in February of 2021, the name Kendrick Castillo landed on Mars, riding aboard the Perseverance rover. Brendan Biley, the senior who pried the gun from Devon Erickson's hand, had this to say in his press conference the day after the shooting.
It's been a very wild couple days, and before I say anything else, and I mean anything else, I am sitting right here. However, there are a couple other students who aren't. One of those being Kendrick Castillo. He passed away. I saw it happen, and I want to make something very, very clear. Kendrick Castillo died a legend. He died a trooper. He got his ticket to Valhalla, and I know he will be with me for the rest of my life. Seriously, I love that kid.